super excited to finally be doing my recommended reads for books with royalty. So basically my recommended royal reads. So I've tried to film this video a few times now. The first time my battery died. Fingers crossed it doesn't do it this time because it might. And the second time I was just kind of rushing through it and I hadn't really prepared that much, so I decided to just scrap 19 minutes of footage and start all over again. So now I am prepared with a nice 4-page flowchart here, and I have 12 books to recommend to you guys. So these aren't necessarily all 5-star books, though most of them are. A couple of them are not 5-star books. I will be saying the rating that I gave all of the books afterwards, but if they aren't a 5-star book, I really loved the royalty in it, and that aspect made me give it a higher rating, and that is why I'm recommending it to you guys today. So without further ado, let's get into my favorite royal reads. So to start it off, I have a pretty recent release, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. So this book is a fantasy novel, and it's actually a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, so there's obviously going to be royalty in it, and the type of royalty in it is the fairy royalty. So we have high fae and kind of fairy queens and all of that kind of stuff. This book is one of my 5 out of 5-star books. I really loved the royalty in it. I loved the mystery of the fairies and how, like, they're just mysteriously beautiful. I loved the magic surrounding the court. I just loved all of the fairies in this book. And I'm not a big fairy person, but I thought it was very well done in this book, and I loved the fact that the fairies were in, like, this royal setting. I think it really added a lot to the story. I really liked the meeting of a common folk and a high fae. I just thought it was really interesting to see someone who had been so impoverished in a setting of royalty, and the fact that like, it's so luxurious. It was really interesting to see her kind of adapt to that type of world after trying to find food all the time for her family. So this book had 2 of my favorite aspects of royalty, and that is the political intrigue of kind of the court and everything, and swoon-worthy royals. So awesome. I love it when it's separate in each book. Like, a book can just have the political intrigue and I still love it, but this one had both and it was awesome. On a similar note, we have Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. So this one is also a fantasy, and in this one we have kings and queens and princes and assassins and things I can't talk about because they're spoilery, but there's a lot of royalty surrounding this book. If you can't tell from the title, Throne, it takes place in a castle, and the main character, Selena, is in a competition to become the king's champion. So Prince Dorian has enlisted her in this competition, and if she becomes the king's champion, she will be his assassin and kill all the people he asks her to. So I loved the characters of this book. I loved the fact that we had this tyrannical king in this kind of dystopian fantasy kingdom. I loved the castle and how kind of creepy it was. I loved that that was the whole setting of the book, because kind of going through the castle, it just got increasingly creepy and very interesting, and I never really knew what was going on. I love the fact that the royalty is kind of added to this mysterious plot, and I loved the mishmash of having good royals like Dorian and bad royals like the king, and I just really enjoyed this book so much. There are like princesses, there's just princesses, queens, kings, everything I could ever hope for in a book with royalty is in this book. This is definitely one of my #1 recommendations if you're looking for a book with royalty, because it is just so epic and it's just so awesome, and I can't even tell you most of why it's so awesome because that would be spoilers, so just read it if you want a royal book because it's just awesome. And this one was obviously 5 out of 5 stars as well. Next I have The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. So in this one we have Princess Leia, and Princess Leia is engaged to a prince from another kingdom purely for political reasons. Her father has arranged this marriage, and this isn't what Leia wants at all. So she escapes, and on her wedding day, she decides that she is going to run away and live the life of the common folk that she has always wanted to live. But when Leia leaves, she ends up meeting 2 people. One is the assassin who was sent to kill her, and the second one is the prince she was set to marry. But throughout the whole novel, you don't know who's who, and you are supposed to try and guess which one is the prince and which one is the assassin. I loved the mystery aspect of this book. Not only do you have the mystery of who's who, but you also have the mystery of Leah trying to kind of uncover the dirty secrets of her kingdom and her family's rule, and it is just made for such an interesting story. I loved that Leah wanted to get away from her princesshood, so to speak, and she just didn't want to be in this arranged marriage, and she stood up for herself and decided to go out and get what she wanted, and I really, really loved that. The royal aspect of this book was definitely one of my favorite parts of it. And it was definitely interesting to see a princess kind of adapting to a new life as someone else that she has never been before. I just really enjoyed this one, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars just because, I don't know, I just didn't love it, but I thought it was really, really good, and I really liked the royalty in it. This next recommendation is another one of my definite top recommendations, and that would be Snow Lake Ashes by Sarah Rosh. This is another fantasy where we have princes and kings and all of that stuff. In this one, it's focused on the prince, though. There's a group of 8 people, and they are all Wintarians. They are the last Wintarians that are still free and still alive. Everyone else has either been sent to camps or they have been killed by the kingdom of spring, which has overtaken the kingdom of winter. So not only has winter's magic been stolen, but basically their whole entire lives have been stolen. And in this remaining group of survivors who are on the run and trying to regain their kingdom to its former glory and get back all the magic, we have Mira, the main character, and then we also have Prince Theron. So Prince Theron is obviously the heir to the throne, and his parents have left him to kind of bring winter back to its former glory after they have been killed. I loved the magic in this book, and I really loved the kingdoms, the whole world that was created. The royalty in it was just awesome. We had the King of Spring, who is obviously trying to capture the Wintarians and kill them or send them to camp so then they can't get back their kingdom. And then we also have Prince Theron, who has so much weight on his shoulders, and you get to see how he deals with it and how Mira tries to help him with that. And there's also a little bit of romantic tension between Theron and Mira, but they can't be a couple because Theron has so much to uphold for his kingdom, and it just made for such an incredible story. I honestly cannot recommend this enough. Like, the fact that these people are trying to get away from their captors and regain their kingdom, the writing, the plot twists in this, it's absolutely insane. I loved it so much, and I cannot recommend it enough. I obviously gave this book 5 stars. Next I have Serafina by Rachel Hartman. This is another fantasy novel, and in this one we have a world where humans and dragons coexist, and the humans and dragons have this treaty where they will agree to kind of put up with each other, and the treaty's anniversary is coming around, and tensions are high, and they don't know if they're going to renew the treaty or what's going on because it's not very much of a comfortable coexistence. And in this novel, the main character, Serafina, is a musician in the court of the royals. So we have princes and princesses. There's a lot of princes and princesses. I couldn't even keep track. And there is a murder in the royal family. So Serafina is recruited by the captain of the Queen's Royal Guard to try and uncover what is going on with this murder and what happened. And along the way, she interacts with Prince Lucian, who happens to be the captain of the Queen's Royal Guard, and she also interacts with some princesses, and she makes some friends, and she has a lot of secrets to hide though, and she's trying to hide them in the midst of the royal court where it's most dangerous for her. It just makes for such an interesting story. My only problem, I didn't love this book though. My only problem was I found a lot of things were underexplained. The kingdom was very interesting, but I just felt like it just kind of fell flat because it wasn't very well developed. So I gave this book 3.5 stars. But like I said, I love the interaction of the humans and the dragons, and the fact that the dragons can turn into humans. It was just so awesome. Next I have Splintered by A.G. Howard. So I can't really talk too much about this book and the royalty in it because it is pretty spoilery, but I will say as much as I can without spoiling you guys. So this is a fantasy novel, and it's a retelling of Alice in Wonderland. So there's obviously going to be like the Red Queen, the White Queen, Queen of Hearts, all of that stuff, and the royalty isn't really prominent in the beginning, but it does end up being a really huge thing in the end, and I think it's going to be pretty big in the rest of the series as well. And I just love this book. The writing and and the reimagining of Wonderland was just so grotesque and fascinating. I just really enjoyed it, and the queens were no different. It was just a really, really enjoyable book. And I gave this one 4.5 stars. Next I have Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge. So this is another fantasy and another Beauty and the Beast retelling. This one wasn't as good as the other one though. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars, something like that, just because it was very, very confusing. However, I did like the royalty aspect of it. Basically what happens is the main character, Nyx, has been engaged to marry the tyrannical ruler of their kingdom, Ignifix, for as long as she can remember, and she has been training to kill him for just as long. So she's supposed to marry him and go off to his castle and then kill him. But when she goes to the castle, she discovers that he's not really what everyone thinks, and he's not as bad of a person as everyone thinks he is. It's basically your typical Beauty and the Beast retelling, but it has a little bit of mythology thrown in there, which was interesting, but wasn't really well thought out because it was pretty confusing and not really well explained. But like I said, I did really love the royalty. I really enjoyed Ignifix. He was a very interesting character since he had the evil side but also the good side to him, and the whole concept of his rule was very, very interesting to me as well. And I did like the kingdom. It was really, in terms of a royal read, I thought it was really good, but it was kind of confusing, which was why I gave it 3.5 stars. Next I have Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is another fantasy novel, and it is kind of a reimagining of Russia, I believe. Basically, the main character finds out that she has these special powers that only the people of the magical elite of her kingdom have, the Grisha, and she ends up being taken to where the Grisha live, which is kind of like the palace, I guess. And she's swept up in the royal court of the Grisha, trying to train to save her kingdom. And of course she encounters the Darkling, which is the ruler of their kingdom, and a very, very interesting character. So this book has a lot of royalty in it. It has the Darkling, who I really enjoy, but then in later books more royalty comes into it, and I love the other royal character that comes into it. He's one of my favorite characters. I overall really enjoyed this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved the whole magic system and the idea of the Grisha and the whole royal court, and the main character, Alina, being kind of swept up in all of that and trying to figure it out after being a soldier for so long. It was very, very interesting. Next I have Cinder by Marissa Meyer. You guys probably figured this was going to make an appearance in here. Any of the books of the Lunar Chronicles, they definitely have royalty in them. But this first one is a retelling of Cinderella, and of course Cinderella, there's a Prince Charming. So we have Prince Kai in this one, and I thought he was a very interesting prince because you don't get to find out too much about him in this one. I thought the whole kingdom was interesting since this book is a sci-fi. I really, really loved that because that's so different for a book involving royalty. And then you also have Queen Lavanna, so you have an evil ruler, like a really evil ruler, but then you also have a good ruler who's kind of stuck in his position. It was just so interesting, and I just really, really enjoyed it. I think the royalty aspect of this is definitely one of my favorite parts, especially because Queen Lavanna is Queen of the Moon, so like it's crazy, and I really, really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next I have, of course, you guys knew this one was going to be in here, The Selection by Kiera Cass. If you are looking for some mindless reading and just some really just swoon-worthy princes, this is the book for you. I don't like this book because of the political intrigue of the royalty in the kingdom. I like it because just the swoon-worthy prince, the romance, it's just great. This one is a dystopian, so another different genre for a royal read, and it's basically The Bachelor, but the bachelor that all these girls are competing for is the prince. So they are competing not only for the prince's hand in marriage, but also for the chance to become princess and queen someday of Iliad. We have America Singer, who is in this competition, and then we have Prince Maxon, who everyone is trying to win over. I love him so much. And then we have his mother, Queen Amberly, and then the king, who is kind of a little bit of a jerk, to put it nicely. I just loved this book. I loved Maxon. I loved being able to, it was kind of like what a little kid imagines it would be like to be a princess in this palace with all the pretty dresses and all these girls in these dresses and just living this luxurious life after they've come from like such bad backgrounds, especially America. It was really interesting to see them kind of adapt to the new life and all the luxury that they have been given. And it was of course interesting to see them interact with the royals as well in their newfound kind of popularity. honestly, just the romance was so fantastic and so great. Oh, if you want a cute romance, read this. If you're looking for political intrigue, I wouldn't really recommend it. The next one is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater, and this is another one where I have to be kind of vague in talking about the royalty of it, but basically it's a paranormal, and these people are on a quest to try and find this mythological Welsh king and see if he's still alive, and he's just been sleeping for a really long time, which is what they think is going on, and it's just really awesome. I love the mythology surrounding it. I think it's going to become a big part in the rest of the series, and I'm super excited to find out more about that because it's just so intriguing. I love the paranormal aspect of it. Honestly, just the quest for it, it's really, really cool. And finally, I have An Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir. So this is another fantasy, and in this one, we have an empire that is based off of ancient Rome. So we obviously have an emperor who is based off of an ancient Roman emperor, and obviously that's going to be a pretty brutal empire and emperor, and just, it's honestly so crazy, brutal, scary. Like, this book gave me nightmares because I thought that, like, the emperor was trying to kill me, and it was just nuts. And I love the fact that we have two sides of the story of, like, kind of this empire. We have someone who is one of the best soldiers, training to be one of the best soldiers for the emperor, and then we have someone who is completely against this and is just on a quest to try and find her brother after he has been taken from her, and she is a slave to the empire. It was just so interesting, and I loved the empire and how, like, just crazy it was. I loved the fact that it was based off of ancient Rome. It was just really awesome, and the royalty does play a really big role in this book. I'm not going to say why because that's kind of a spoiler, but it does end up being a huge part of the book, and it is just so awesome. So those are all of my recommendations right now for royal reads. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will be doing more of these recommended royal reads once I do read more books with royalty in them. I have a lot on my TBR. I just haven't read them yet, or I, like, don't own them yet. But yeah, I hope this was helpful to you guys. Let me know some of your favorite royal reads, and let me know if you've read any of these. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!